JoAnne Yarrow, you're now an Emmy nominated editor of Only Murders in the Building. How does that sound?
Surprising, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
Who would really?
Yeah.
Um, how did you find out?
I had kind of lost track of when the announcements were going to be, and I'm working right now in New York, so I was into my day, and all of a sudden I started getting a bunch of text messages, and I was sort of silent, and I just turned my phone to my coworker, and she read them, and she was the one that was expressive and screaming, and I was just kind of in shock. So that's how I found out, and then she screamed, call your husband. So later, there was somebody down the hall that was like, "What happened? You had to call your husband about something."
And you're like, it's good news. Don't worry, it's okay.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
Well, the show was so much fun, and you were one of three editors who worked on season one with Julie Monroe, who was also nominated, and Matthew Barbato. So, what was that dynamic night like? Because I know you guys were also doing it virtually over Zoom because lockdown and everything. So, yeah, what can you describe the process?
Yeah. So, two amazing editors who I absolutely adore and look up to. Um, Julie had cut the pilot, but I came on episode two and I hadn't been able to watch her episode yet. So I kind of went, just instinctually off of what I felt like it was going to be like. And then Matthew was able to join. He was already on. That's just how the episodes, we divvied out the episodes. Um, luckily we have a really good camaraderie with each other. And, we would kind of talk through things, absolutely. And even though we were remote and Zoom, we actually still Zoom today. That's how close we got on this remote show, which is shocking. But it was really great to work with them and kind of, see how they're feeling about different things and, musically, where they're going in a scene and all that stuff. So it was great to be able to have that open dialogue with each other, even though we weren't in the same space physically.
Mm-hmm. You not being able to see Julie's episode, the pilot, is that something you prefer, just not knowing what she did, or would you have rather had seen the episode?
It ended up working out. It was just sort of the timing of things, and they were still working on it, so they just wanted to give it a beat before, they decide, hey, this is everything, this is what it's going to be like. And I definitely consulted with her, if she had any tips or guidance or, how she wanted anything done, since she had sort of set the tone of everything. And she really just, sort of being the gracious person she is, was there's nothing, go for it, go for it. So and really the tone was quite baked into the scripts, so you really got a strong sense of what this was going to look and feel like.
For sure. Yeah, because I think like each episode, it has its own style sort of because it's a different POV and
Yes.
narration, but there's still like a through line through all 10 episodes, or like specific styles or things that like there's a lot of prelap in the
Mm-hmm.
episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So like is that something you guys discuss, and also with like the showrunner like John Hoffman and everything, of like doing that type of technique
It
and
was,
technique?
it honestly happened all pretty organically, It just sort of, it lent itself to that sort of naturally. I don't think we were sort of checking each other in that way. But, it was more for like specific, oh, they used for this scene, they used that theme musically. I'm going to try and kind of keep doing that as well. But really, editorially speaking, it just sort of looked naturally. We all kind of, had this cohesiveness built in naturally. So we were lucky that way.
Mhm. How much of the season did you know, like when you joined? Were you told of like who the killer was? Like, did you know how the season ended?
Um, no, I'm trying to think back about how it, no, I didn't know. And actually, because my last episode was episode 8, I was so into this story that I didn't want to know how it ended. And I didn't want to know who the killer was because I wanted to watch it and kind of experience that with everybody else. And my amazing assistant, Olivia Latz, love her. She's incredible. She had just assumed I had already had already known, had already read the scripts, but I intentionally was trying to, avoid everything. And just in passing, she just, said, "Oh yeah, because and named the killer." And I was like, "No, I was trying not to learn that information, but it was going to come out eventually, so it was fine." But
She
yeah.
just assumed you already knew. So
She assumed, and
that's fair.
rightfully so. Totally fair. Totally fair.
Yeah. Well, that's also interesting because I guess what is the challenge or like the approach you take when you also have to kind of maintain continuity in a mystery show, right? And then like maybe you don't like there's specific cuts you can't use because it might give something away or you don't want to focus too much on a clue or like an Easter egg that might come into play later.
It was really interesting in that way because I feel like although there were clues along the way, we weren't exactly sure how things would pay off. And I know in episode 2, um, Marty's character finds like these sex toys in Tim Kono's apartment. And, the one he took out and was swinging around, they obviously knew what that was and how that was going to pay off later. But at the time, I was like, oh, that's just he played with all kinds of stuff in there. And I was like, that's just a really funny one. So I didn't actually know at that point that was actually going to pay off later. But again, it's like these incredible directors. Jamie Babbitt was directing that episode. Shireen Davis directed the episode I'm nominated for. And, they were all just had it squared away. They knew what they were doing, and we weren't going to be misdirected. We were going to be led in the right direction, and we wouldn't be overplaying anything too much or too little. And yeah, and so it was. It was sort of the perfect amount of guidance and natural exploration, I think.
For sure. Yeah, so you did 3 episodes. You did the second one, who was Tim Kono, the fifth one, Twist, and yeah, like you said, the eighth one, fan fiction, and that was your submission. So how do you decide to submit that one?
I love all my babies the same. But 8 was a really fun one because we're sort of in the height of the story at that point. We're really getting close to who we think the killer is, and just everything is escalating. And there's some really fun scenes in there that I really enjoyed cutting and watching, as a viewer as well. I love this idea of fandom and all those sort of die hard podcast fans that are following every little tiny morsel of information. And I love bringing those people into it and getting their takes. And so I thought it was a really fun story, and it was just a part in the series where things are really escalating. So it made sense to me.
Hmm. Yeah, I love the fans, the Arconiacs.
Yes, yes, they are
Yeah, and
coming
it's
back.
narrated from one of them, Sam. Yeah, and it opens with that, like them waiting outside Araconia. So, what do you, as an editor, when you're introducing completely new characters that like, we, the viewer, have to be immediately invested in? Like, how do you approach that scene? Like, it's literally the opening scene of the episode.
Yeah, it is a different sort of take on anything that I had ever worked on before, kind of like branching off, and here's a brand new person, and we're seeing it from their perspective. Luckily, by that point, we had sort of established this. Maybe you don't know this character, but you're going to get to know them, or you're going to get to know this world through their eyes. So it really helped to have that groundwork already there. And, for him, I just felt like anyone can relate to being, I have my favorite shows. I have my favorite things to watch, whether it's a podcast or, a TV series or movies. Like I understand that type of person. So it was really just, getting into, relating with him and his enthusiasm. So,
Yeah, and I love later in the episode when Oliver brings them up as reinforcements to help
yes,
they powwow.
yes,
I love that scene too because I think the show works best when there's a lot of people in a
yes,
scene, and I think especially with the core three with Marchworth, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez, and I love how a lot of the shots when it's the three of them, you can see all three. It's not like a close up.
yes,
Really.
yes.
So how did you go
Absolutely.
about the cutting like that final scene with like so many people in Oliver's living room?
That was one of my favorite scenes. I love it. It's a little bit of an homage to Matthew Barbato's episode 103, where they're doing a chorus line and calling out the different, possible suspects, and it's just so theatrical and so over the top and ridiculous that it's just too much fun. And everybody, all those fans have such, even though you don't know them and you're meeting them for the first time, they so quickly and clearly have a strong personality and character trait to them that you immediately understand them, I feel like. And so, obviously in that scene, Oliver is sort of the ringleader. He's showing everyone his idea, and he's the director in that scene, so we're listening to him, so definitely the focus is on him. And then for comic relief, Steve Martin and obviously Selena, just cutting to them to have a great sort of roll your eyes reaction, like, what is this guy going off on now? He's crazy, this is crazy, what are we doing? So yeah, and I get truly, when the three of them are together, it is magic. And this episode specifically, we were lucky to have so many scenes with all three of them together. They're kind of in it. They talk to the detective. They have their little side conversations, even in that scene with Oliver, where they can just kind of banter back and forth, and that's always a good dynamic for them.
Yeah, the banter is always great because it's usually like Oliver, like you said, saying something
Yeah.
crazy, or like Steve Martin saying something like a very dad joke, and Selena's just rolling her eyes.
Right.
But I also like love the pacing of that because a lot of times you move on so quickly. Like I've often had to pause to laugh or like rewind to
Uh-huh.
watch it again. So how do
Yeah.
you settle how long you want like the beat to run for? Because it's usually pretty quick.
It is pretty quick. I feel like we don't want to broadcast that this is a joke necessarily. And this is just, in real life, how it is. People are saying that, and maybe it's not funny to everyone either, but this is them, this is their personality, and you're moving on to the next thing, and you're sort of just able to, you're sort of experiencing the rolling the eyes, the reaction with those people, the people who are taking on the reaction, not necessarily the person who's just delivered the line. So I feel like it's just, we want to make it, we want to punctuate it, but also not broadcast that we're trying to be funny, or we think we're funny. We're just naturally funny, and we're moving on.
Yeah, definitely for sure. But this episode and also the fifth one, which I loved because they were going to Long Island, and I'm from there, and I love
Ah,
all those jokes.
oh
But
yes,
there's a lot of car scenes, a lot of green screen.
yes.
So what's it like when you have a car scene like that, and like is the effects in yet for the outside of like the windows when you're
That was quite interesting because even though I've been to New York many times, and I happen to be here now, uh, I didn't know the geography. So we got all these plates. At some point, someone gave us a map, but I didn't know how that corresponded to anything. So it was a lot of guesswork. We had all kinds of plates, and my assistant and I Olivia, we laid them in, and that that episode specifically became really challenging because it was written originally in a different way. It was written sort of this Rashomon style, so that we're seeing it through one person's perspective, which was Selena. I think it was Charles and Oliver's perspective, and then we switch to Mabel's perspective, and so you get a different read on it based on the context. And then at some point, we decided to do it sort of all together linear. And it kind of went back and forth a couple times, which means the plates had to change different times. So it ended up being quite a challenge to kind of keep that going and keep that sort of technical side up as the story was changing. But we finally landed on this version the way it is now. And it was a lot of work. I mean, for a little show, not only were there green screens in all those shots that I was doing, comping myself, or my assistant. There was also all the season one, all the interior shots of the apartments were green screen as well because of where they were on stage. So even though it was a tiny show, we actually had a lot of visual effects.
It looked great, like very realistic too.
Yeah, they did a great job. A great job. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's also a lot of montages and voiceover, especially in the end of 8 when everyone's listening to the episode. So how do you go about picking the right images for those montages?
So that again, Shireen did an amazing job. She picked a style and stuck with it. They're all sort of these dolly shots that sort of connect in that way, movement wise. And it was, I think, supposed to sort of feel like a continuous thought instead of just like choppy montage, together. So it was very deliberate, and she was really smart about the way she shot it and thought about it. And, it was just a matter of being able to put everything we want and fitting it into that amount of time. So there were a little bit of challenges there, but for the most part, it all worked out. And I completely credit her for, shooting it the way she did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of time, most of the episodes are 30 minutes, and you guys are on Hulu, so you could definitely go longer should you choose to. So did you guys have a strict time limit at all on the episode runtimes?
That was the really wonderful thing. We were able to create what the episode needed, So if it had to be shorter or maybe a little longer, we had that flexibility, which is so nice, that we weren't cornered into it has to hit this mark. So the parts that are in there absolutely deserve to be in there, and at the same time, we didn't have to chop anything that we felt that couldn't fit a time slot. So that was great.
Right. You didn't go longer just because you could. So
we didn't go longer just because we could. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, finally, in the spirit of the Arconiacs, what are you a huge fan of?
Oh gosh. I have been working a lot lately, actually. I just started watching The Bear.
I love The Bear, a great show.
Which I love. Like I love the way it looks. I love the way it's cut. And so I'm getting into that right now. Yeah, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
What episode are you up to?
I just finished episode 2, so I'm brand new.
Okay, so
but I hear 7. It gets even. Yeah,
7 is a good one.
I hear 7. I hear 7 is good. So I'm excited.
JoAnne, it was great speaking with you. Have fun watching The Bear, and congratulations again on your nomination.
Thank you so much.